Good morning, everybody. This is torchcactus.com, and this is our 2023 Mega Bloom. This is day 3 going on right now. I'm just blown away at the beauty of these plants. Let me pan around. It's going to take you down this row. As you can see, there's a couple hundred plants here, most of which are in flower. And we're coming back down to this one. This is Colin. Here's one that's more of a dark orange. There's a rosy pink one. Beautiful yellow over here. A red one, which I recognize as Fuente de Sangre. This one's pink topaz. Here's our hybrid archangel. Some different colored ones in here. Such an array of different colors and shapes and forms. So mind-blowing. Here's a huge wide flower with more of a dark throat. Very unusual. Flowers, flowers everywhere. Everywhere flowers. My goodness. So beautiful. I know you can hear my feet crunching. There's some leaves on the ground. Somebody's honking. Oh my goodness, look at this thing. Head went snap.
So this
Like
is
man.
Hustler, Trichocereus
Trichocereus hustler.
Do you have any Trichocereus or Echinopsis that you would recommend for very cold weather? Because I have some viewers who ask me.
That's a great question.
They usually, like those who live in Canada, they do bring them indoors, but they have a very long winter. So is there something that you can recommend for them?
Okay, so there's two worlds of thought. You can live in a cold climate and have your plants indoors. They're not going to get cold because you're not going to freeze to death in your own house. But there are plants that are pretty hardy outside. So my mom and dad live in Prescott, Arizona, and they're at about 5,500 feet elevation. And it gets regular snow every year. It gets down to single digits. I believe they got down to 8 degrees last year. And I brought a plant to them to have an experiment. So I brought a flying saucer about that big, and they planted it in a pot, and they've kept it outside, and it's now been 5 years, and their flying saucer probably looks better than mine.
Outside?
Outside.
You mean they get snowed
Snowed.
on?
It looked like a snowman. It was solid snow, 8 degrees, thawed out, froze again, thawed out, froze again, and bloomed its heart out in the spring. Now, I don't know if they all can do that. I'm sure they can't all do that, but the Trichocereus, the taller kind, seem to be able to take quite a bit of frost. I had a snowstorm here about 6 years ago where we got about a foot of snow, covered all my plants outside, and I thought, well, that's it, I'm done, they're all gonna die. And I was pretty nervous for about 2-3 weeks. The snow melted after about a week, and as the snow melted, my plants looked greener and more vibrant than I've ever seen them before. And in fact, we're finding out the taller ones that we call Trichocereus, if they don't get some winter chill, if it doesn't get below 38 degrees in the wintertime, they will not bloom that well. So we're finding out people in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida, where it's very warm in the wintertime, they don't get as many blooms as we do. Now for them, Lobivias and Echinopsis and other plants do really, really well, and they bloom really, really well. But some of these taller Trichocereus, for people in those warm winter areas are not getting the blooms we do. So we found out that at least Trichoceres flying saucer, Arizona sunset, and quite a few others. I have now about 10 plants in my parents' yard. They're doing great, they haven't died, and they bloom like crazy. So we're finding out that people in Prescott, Arizona, St. George, Utah, some of these places we never thought cactus could grow like this are doing just great. But if you're in Canada and it's 20 degrees below zero, I can't say whether that plant will grow outside or not, but you can always bring them in. But again, they still have to have a little bit of winter chill and frost to bloom well.
Oh my gosh, look at this thing with these yellows and these oranges. I'm gonna pan around so you can kind of see what we're looking at. Here is a picture of the nursery here. You can see there's just a few plants flowering today. I also wanted to show that I am growing these things from seed, and here's some seedlings that I just started a couple years ago, and they're blooming for the very first time today, so that's really exciting for me. There's so much to look at. It's almost like I don't know what to look at first. This one's called Magic Eyes. I really love it because it has this blush pink in the middle, and it's got this peachy yellow outer petals. Here's a pink one. Just so many things to look at. So when we're talking about my Torch Cactus group on Facebook, these are some plants I pulled out yesterday in the nursery that I'm going to list today. And you can see that they're pretty good sized plants. They're in a 6x6 inch pot. And here's a nice pink. Here's a yellow with stripes. Here's a big pink. I have some oranges, and these are all blooming for the first time. And I don't keep everything that I get from flower. You just can't keep that many plants. Oh my gosh, look at this one. I think this one's gonna go fast. And I'm just gonna pan out a little bit more and show you just how many plants are flowering. These are mostly flying saucer in here, the big pink ones. There's a few other different things in here. And here are some of the other plants in 6x6 inch pots that are flowering that I will be posting for sale. And if you want to come over here and visit and you're in the Southern California area, I highly recommend that. And you can contact me by going to torchcactus.com and getting my contact information. Just make an appointment with me and come on over and take a look for yourself.
All right, what is this white flower here, Brent?
Oh, this is another Echinopsis hybrid.
Oh.
It's just a really pretty one.
And
but
then
pure white.
Pure white, yeah. Last time I remember when I was here, you were talking about the fertilizer that you were using. It was for flowering the Grow
Making
More
them flower,
Magnum Rose
right.
food. Do you still use that for your cactus?
I do. I use Grow More Magnum Rose Food, and it's an 8-10-8. And it's really primarily to get them going, get them started. And right around February, end of February, early March, I will mix it into a spray tank and spray it over my plants. And then I water my plants immediately after spraying them. You can't spray the plants and leave it on there. It will actually burn the plant. Now, I've told quite a few people about the Grow More Magnum Rose Food, and if you don't apply it just right, you can overfeed your plant. So it's a little bit on the dangerous side if you don't know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, I would suggest not doing that and going to something more simple, like just using the Osmocote 1414 time release. That's a lot easier, and the results are going to be very good as well. But if you really want to get that mega bloom, that huge wave of flowers, putting the Grow More Magnum Rose Food, and the Magnum part of the Grow More Magnum Rose Food is a type of fertilizer that is not in regular fertilizers, and it makes them bloom more. It's like Epsom salts. It has Epsom salts in the fertilizer.
Do you dilute the
Yes,
fertilizer?
you have to dilute it, and that's the problem. As best as I can describe how to do it, sometimes people overdo it, or they mix a whole bucket and they'll pour a whole bucket on the plant, and it's overkill. It's too much.
So how much dilution do you do?
That's tough because I use about 16 ounces for 4 gallons of water, but then each plant is only getting about 2 ounces of that. So that's where the math gets really fuzzy and very difficult for people to follow.
Oh, because
Now,
like
it works really good.
When I use my tomato fertilizer, I do half the strength
Right.
of what is, you know, recommended in the package. So what do you do with the
Well, the Grow More Magnum
food?
Rose Food, whatever it's recommended for roses, I use a quarter of that, 25% of that. And then just whatever you would do for a rose bush or a potted rose, only use 25% of what's recommended, and just don't pour too much. And it's always good to water the plant directly after applying the fertilizer. It'll help wash it into the soil.
And out of the
Yeah, it's just
plant.
better. You don't
Yeah.
want a dry plant being fertilized. It's just a little too much for the plant.
I see.
Yeah.
And then do you also still do the chicken manure?
Now, I used to get chicken manure. It's granulated chicken manure, and it's aged, and I would get it very sandy, and I would just sprinkle it here and there on my plants. But I've been having a difficult time. Ever since COVID, I've had a difficult time finding it. And every time I find a product that says chicken manure, I bring it home and open it up, and it ends up being 95% mulch with a little bit of chicken manure. So if I could find myself some chicken manure, I would use it.
And you need a lot because you have a
Yeah,
lot
I mean, I
of
would need a
plants.
few hundred pounds of it. And I just sprinkle it a little bit. It's almost like putting salt on a little piece of food. Just a little bit goes a long ways with chicken manure. You don't want to take a whole handful of it and throw it on your plant.
How often do you do the chicken manure?
Well, the chicken manure you could do 3 times a year, like March, June, and August.
And what does
So-
it do?
Now, it brings a lot of nutrients into the soil, and because it's a probiotic, it gets all the microbes in the soil really happy, but it has a lot of nitrogen, usable nitrogen that the plant can use to grow quickly. So that's really what it has. It has usable elements. A lot of our artificial fertilizers, now they have good numbers on the package, but they're not always usable for the plant.
So the chicken manure, you do it like 2-3 times a
2
year.
to 3 times a year if I could find it.
Grow More Magnum Rose Food.
One time in the beginning of the year.
One time,
Yeah.
like spring, around spring.
Right around end of February, early March.
Oh, even before spring.
Yes, so it waters in, maybe there's still a little bit of rainstorms going on, and that will start to get them to boost, to pull in nutrients, and it really pays off about a month and a half, 2 months later.
All right. Which one is this, Brent?
Oh, that's Echinopsis poca. And this
Poca.
is, yeah, poca, or puka, P-O-O-K-A, so maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, puka. I call it poca because if you get too close, it will poke you. That's a cactus joke. I don't know.
Cactus joke.
I don't know. We always say if you come out to the nursery,
Daddy joke.
you come out to our nursery, we always say the acupuncture is free. No, you're not going to get injured by these plants unless you do something that you shouldn't. And of course, we always wear gloves when we're working with them. They flowered, and look, there's a whole nother wave coming.
I know. I
they
guess I
really-
came in too early for these buds.
I know.
When I can just imagine when all these bloom, you're gonna have another mega bloom this year. You already had one mega bloom, right?
One mega bloom, and we'll probably have 2 or 3 more if you fertilize them correctly.
Wow. Just
So once they finish blooming, you can feed them a little bit more and they'll bloom even harder. But again, if you get good results, stick with it. Don't keep pushing it or adding more fertilizer. That's not a good idea. If you're getting good results, stay with the formula that you have. Some people are going, well, that worked. Maybe more is better. Well, there's a point of no return with fertilizer when you've used too much and you can't go back and you can't save your plant. So I always say if it's working good for you, leave it alone.
yeah, just take a look at all these buds. I see that this was the first mega bloom. A lot of them are already in the fruit forming stage.
Yeah.
But then you still have more buds coming.
Oh yeah, and that's what's unique about these plants. There are other cactus species and genera that only bloom once a year. That's it. And then you gotta wait for the entire year to go by to see it again. These plants will give you, again, with proper fertilization, they will rebloom at least 5 times a year, if not more.